Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Attack on Titan Season 3, Episode 6. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this is probably gonna be definitely one of my longer reviews for sure, because there's just so much information in order to unpack in this episode that it's just like, yo, damn, like holy shit. Um, so right off the bat, one element that was really touching and kind of cool in this episode was the beginning flashback where we see Historia and her sister Freda reading, which gives us it's a nice scene in general because it just shows that of course that Historia had someone else other than even before Ymir in her life, and just how and who helped in order to mold her into the person she I guess you could say kind of ended up becoming in like a from like season one, from the person we see in like season 1 and 2. um but it's good to know that she had someone else other than Historia who helped kind of like motivate her into who she was, but not eventually who she became. Because let's be honest, the Historia like that's here is a lot more is definitely a lot more cynical about it. It's definitely a lot more cynical, that's for sure. Um, but but yeah, it's just good to get a little more info on her backstory with that one. And one thing I thought was especially kind of cool too is is seeing the origins of how Historia would eventually like end up adopting the name of Krista Lenz in the military in order to hide her true name, and even a lot of what made her a caring person too. Uh, Although, like from the way the preview looks, I can see, like I said, Historia now has become a lot more of a cynical person, and I can see her memories of her sister returning to being a big contributing factor to whether or not she'll pretty much choose to save or eat Eren in this current situation. And it's it's kind of one of those things where we pretty much know Eren will basically get out of this only because of the current, at least for now, because the current plot of the scouts rescuing him it kind of protects, it kind of gives him a little bit of plot armor. But at the same time, there is going to be this whole thing of what Historia is going to do after having learned all this. Like the big question right now is what decision is Historia going to make that's of what that's gonna determine if she's going to be against the scouts or still with the scouts. Like she's pretty much learned a chunk. Right now, her mind is just processing all of this information, and right now she's just trying to figure out of what's the what the right thing to choose or what the right thing to do right now is. So yeah, I'm really getting into Historia's like development right now, and yeah, and seeing what she's gonna do. Um, also, we see even more of the events following the successful dethroning of the fake royalty. And keeping with what I said last episode, I do like how, despite the whole success of the scouts, the garrison, and the last minute help of the military police, I like how, despite the success of the three regiments coming together to stop the fake royalty, there's still this aura of unease and uncertainty of where to go, from here, and how humanity can move forward. In fact, there's even more of it now, because despite learning that yes, the race family has manipulated the memories of the people, as proven with what Freda did to Historia, that knowledge to them, as it stands, is completely useless, or at the very least hard to work with in the current situation, until they can learn why people's memories are being erased to begin with. Like they've learned the base that yes, memories are being erased, but now the thing to learn now is why memories are being erased. And I completely understand Pixis' frustration in this situation, because it's got to be fucking frustrating to know that you've learned all this information, and yet despite knowing it, you the pretty much humanity has really this is kind of at a stalemate here. Like despite learning all this information, that there's just that they really have no way of knowing like what particular area is the right what particular path is the right path to choose from here. Like where exactly what exactly is where exactly can we even go from here? Like it's it's frustrating. Like at the moment, I think the only thing that I like at the moment the only thing that they really can do right now is go back to the original plan of saving Aaron and have him seal up and seal up and go back to Shinganshin and seal up the wall there. Like that's really like it's really one of those things where at the at the end of the day, every like the pretty much the path of where to go, it all lies on Aaron's shoulders again. Like every it's unless they can get it really kind of boils down to that unless they can get the Shiganshina district back up and running, things aren't even gonna look all things are going to go downhill fast after this. That's and yeah, it's just really one of those times where it's so interesting how despite having a victory, so to speak, it could so easily just pretty much turn in. It could so easily just still end up turning into a defeat. That's really kind of it's really kind of intriguing for a shonen story. Now, let's talk about the reveal in this chapter. Now let's talk about the big reveal in this chapter. Grisha was the cause of the Race family's death, which isn't surprising in itself, but the reveal and confirmation that Grisha was a Titan shifter just blows open so many reveals about the series since the beginning, and finally brings a lot more out into the open, while again just raising just as many questions too, like the one I mentioned previously about why people's memories are being erased, but also this kind of raises an interesting question, because if Aaron gained his Titan power from eating his father, then how did Grisha gain his Titan power? Because a lot of what we see in this episode, it seems to point to the fact that from just the Race family were the only ones within the walls that had the power to control Titans. So now this just raises the question to become Titans, of course. So this just raises the question of where Grisha got his power to turn into a Titan, because I doubt Grisha ended up. I doubt it was like a thing where the Race family did ended up doing something to him, because I don't think they'd willingly give their power to someone like that. And the truth is, and the funny thing is, like, with all this information, with this big information dump, I will say, okay, it's one of those things where, as a manga reader, I'll say I won't spoil it, but let's just say the answer to these questions all lie in the second half of the series. And honestly, the thing is, if you guys look closely at all the information being dumped on you in this episode, the answers have basically been gift wrapped to you guys. Like, it's very subtle, and you do need to pay very close attention to like each line of dialogue and every and a lot of what the Race family says, and a lot of the details within the backstory itself of what Grisha did. But a lot of the details going forward of basically how of where Grisha got his power from, like the answer's been basically gift wrapped to you, and even just like plot points for that are going to be revealed to you guys in the second half of the series too. Now, having said all this, I could be wrong. Forgive me. It has been a while since I've read this material in the manga, but I do believe the manga did go into a little more detail with the particular material having to do with basically in terms of what Grisha ended up doing to the in terms of what Grisha ended up doing to pretty much the race family. Like I think the manga did go into a little more detail with the whole confrontation of Grisha and the race family, but here it went it was overall I think the anime did get the point across. And I mean, if there wasn't one other thing I did have to point out is that I feel that I feel that those flashbacks did. I guess it was kind of a trick in order to save on the animation budget, but I feel they did kind of overuse the still images a bit in terms of the use of still images in those flashbacks. Like I think they could have done a lot more with those flashbacks, but it is what it is. And of course, that's not even the end of the crazy ass reveals in this episode, because we learn the truth of the Ackerman bloodline, which is that they were once the protectors to the royalty, pretty much due to their innate combat senses and abilities, which already makes so much fucking sense when you basically look at when you basically look at how powerful pretty much Mikasa and Levi are. Like it's Levi. It really just makes it really kind of adds up in terms of like why the Ackermen are like that. Like they've kind of they in a way, I guess, like I know there have been comparisons to Saiyans, but I guess in a way it is warranted when you look at the fact that yeah, these guys they're basically warriors, and they're basically warriors, and it's in a lot of ways it's kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic that because of those same qualities that the Ackerman possessed, that the Ackerman clan possessed, that have inevitably led to the royalty they were protecting to inevitably fear the Ackermans, and which inevitably led to the Ackermans and the Orientals being pretty much banned or being ostracized and ousted by the royalty. So it's really an ironic series of events with the Ackerman family, really. And in terms of, and the only thing I can fathom as to why the Orientals were also ostracized alongside the Ackermans is that both, what I can assume is that both are immune to the mind-wiping power of the race family. On top of, is that both are immune to the mind-wiping power of the race family. Also, on top of the Ackermans already having like insane combat abilities. Of course, like all this, on top of which all this particular information was told through Kenny's flashbacks, and because it was told in Kenny's flashback, I think we were also teased that Kenny's sister is Levi's mother. Like it kind of adds up a little bit that Kenny has a sister who's a prostitute in the slums, ended up being pregnant, and yeah, it's basically all adding up right now. And so yeah, and the whole, and if this is true and that Kenny and Levi have an actual like blood related uncle nephew relationship, then this brings an entirely whole new meaning to their to definitely the whole dynamic with each other too. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this crazy chapter. Like I said, we're just getting so much fucking information told us at once that it's like, yeah, like it's funny how this chapter started off a little slow, but then really zoomed into the shit. So yeah, but that's all I have for you guys. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.